Express, the chain, was founded in England in 1965 when Prince Andrew was only 5. But no pizza birthday parties for him, not for then second in line to be king after Charles's jug-eared brother. Isn't it a shame their mother wasn't immortal or could regenerate like Doctor Who, but she'd have stood up to witness that disastrous interview in 2019 where Andrew denied ever having been with a trafficked teen and totally believed he'd nailed it till the media let rip on his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. But back to pizzas. You see, the ones of my childhood were a novelty. They came pre-packaged, not from some wartime rationing recipe, but still, to the horror of me and my brother, they were presented as pizzas by my mother when we had friends over for tea, and they only came in one variety, cheese and tomato, sold frozen by the dozen. But instead of baking them in the oven, my mother would put them under the grill so they'd be burned on top but still cold in the middle. And back then, there was no pizza date night. It was a rite of passage for your boyfriend to take you to the Burney Inn, where the nation's favourite dish was a prawn cocktail starter, followed by steak garni served with chips and peas and Black Forest Gatto for afters, all washed down with 1.5 litres of Blue Nun, after which he'd run you home in his Vauxhall Corsa and there'd be a sort of clumsy teenage fumbling in your knickers with the engine still running, and your parents wondering why it takes you so long to come in, Margaret. Paradise by the dashboard lights. You want to cry, but instead you just say, good night. So this new chain changed the nation. The menu was a revelation. Ingredients we'd never had as toppings: exotic pepperoni and Italian sausage and tomatoes that had been sun-dried and mushrooms that were now called fungi and balls of mozzarella and bottles of Valpolicella and Sade played non-stop over the speakers. If you got that reference, you too lived through the 80s. That very first branch opened on Wardour Street in London's Soho, and in the early 2000s, Wardour Street's not far from China White, the club where late at night Andrew was seen leaving, sweating, heavy breathing, running to royal protection, who of course had no recollection of any such event, let alone the night in question. But China White's not even the one where the Queen's 41-year-old son took his dancing queen, Virginia, young and sweet, only 17, who said his perspiration felt like rain, but not La Rain, my favourite pizza of the chain, but the toxic, clammy kind of sweat that stinks of arrogance and unearned wealth. No, that club was Tramp, members-only playpen for the rich and famous, the nameless, shameless. Oh, but Andrew's blameless. Says, I didn't know this girl from Adam. I certainly didn't mount her under the watchful eye of the Madam Maxwell at her Belgravia residence, nor in Palm Beach at Epstein's expense. I refute this outlandish claim. I barely knew them. Jeffrey and Ghislaine. And that photo with my arm wrapped around the girl's bare waist. It's a fake. It was never taken. Digital manipulation. Show me the original and I'll prove it's been photoshopped. Jesus Christ, she looks hot in that low-cut top. No, I mean, here's my proof. I can't sweat. I'm a Falklands vet. It's a peculiar condition. It started in my chopper. That's my Sea King helicopter. Doctor said it's an overdose of adrenaline from being shot at by the Argentines. It blocked my pores, clogged my glands. That's the cause. And, well, who cares if it sounds implausible? It's my story, not yours. 10th of March, 2001. He says, I remember it well. I can tell you there's no way I was having sex because I was at Pizza Express in Woking, the branch nearest my home. I was there for a birthday party with Beatrice, my daughter. But, sir, surely staff ought to recall if they saw you, but no one's come forward. And every diner that night seems to have had amnesia because none of them said they'd seen you either. Isn't it sordid for your 12-year-old child to be your alibi, to be the proof that it's your accuser, not you, that lied? Of course, which you expressly deny all wrongdoing, but your accuser is still suing for sexual assault on 3 occasions. No, not liaisons. Trafficking by Epstein and Maxwell, the latter now languishing in a cell. Her only hope is a rope to follow her boyfriend's lead. Her greed is as disgusting as yours. But full of bluster and denial, you said you'll take it to trial. These attempts to defame the good name of the royal duke, so a rebuke. So perhaps still some glimpse of the honourable prince, some ounce of inherited integrity. No, because in the end you caved while your accuser stood bravely against you and refused to be intimidated by a legal system that favours the rich. That bitch, who does she think she is? Get your lawyers to destroy her. Shred her like vermin at the Royal Boxing Day hunt them. But you're a coward. You couldn't further risk your reputation on a cross-examination that would see you on the stand to hear firsthand about your 12-year friendship with a pedophile that continued long after his conviction. Instead, you settled out of court for an undisclosed sum, £12 million, courtesy of your mum, a grown man still clinging to her privy purse strings, a multi-million-pound bailout that leaves us in no doubt that this was about damage limitation, a way for the nation to still celebrate your mother's glorious 70-year reign without the stain of your moral culpability. But she stripped you of your titles, a royal defenestration, no more HRH designation, no more military affiliations, no longer a working royal to soil the palace balcony with your presence. No, Andrew, you were never too honourable. You're a deluded narcissist, a master of insouciance and disdain, so vain to believe the nation thought you a war hero, a royal icon, impervious to the law, but you will never take responsibility for your actions. So my hope is that your perfidious legacy is to be remembered as the defender of a convicted sex offender, alleged perpetrator of the same, betrayer of the Windsor name. Oh, the grand old Duke of York, he had 12 million quid. He gave it to someone he never met for something he never did.